Obrigado.
I have to. I just saw the film, and I have to. Tell me about, all these projects. What you knew, Robert Eggers, what we proposed, everything, something.
Robert Eggers made a film called The Witch a couple of years ago. Okay, cool. Yeah. And I saw that, and I knew nothing about how it was made, or I didn't hear any reviews, or I didn't hear anything. I was away, and I came back I was in New York, and I just saw a poster. And I went in the way you do, knowing nothing about a movie. And I saw it, and I thought, wow, there's a filmmaker here. There's someone that really does this period world beautifully. It was easy to enter into the world, and there was something that was very true about his vision, and I thought, I got to meet this guy. So I arranged to meet him, and we got along. It turned out he knew my theater work, and we had a great conversation, and we said, let's work together, and this is really the result of that. I didn't have anything to do with developing it. He just called me up one day and said, I have a project. It's a two-hander. It's you, Rob Pattinson, read it, yes or no. Very little conversation, because we had already had our conversation, and I wanted to work with the guy. And of course, when I read it first, I said, what's this, old? I'm not old. Old enough.
But he wrote the script alone, because he's coming from the theater as well, no?
He comes from the theater, but he once The Witch found some success, and it did, he started really writing a lot and proposing lots of projects, and none of them, they were slightly bigger projects, and none of them got off the ground. And then his brother, who also was a writer, said, I got this idea for a ghost story in a lighthouse. And Rob said, that sounds good. I wish I had thought of that. And long story short, he got stuck. The brother got stuck. And he said, let me have it for a while. And he remembered that the last thing that Edgar Allan Poe was writing was called The Lighthouse. Also, he had heard a story, a true story that happened in Wales about two lighthouse keepers, both called Thomas, one young, one old, and they didn't get picked up, and they went mad, and one of them killed the other one. So that was all in his head, and he didn't want to. He kind of abandoned the idea of a ghost story and was more interested in kind of this psychological meltdown between these two men.
And but there is references to some mythic characters, and you feel that all the dialogues were very written, and it was like a theater play almost, no?
Oh, fantastic. When I read the script, I thought, it's very rare in, a lot of you probably speak English very well, but this is difficult text probably, so you probably miss a lot. Hopefully you get the music and the rhythm, and hopefully the subtitles are okay. It's always tough, because this is really poetic, very evocative images. It has a beautiful rhythm. I like the writing a lot. That was a big attraction, and he's quite good at writing that stuff. It's fun to perform. It's fun. Yeah, it's a different kind of language that you're usually able to play with in cinema. Of course, the difficult part is to not make it a show and have it separate out from the story. But this is shot so formally that, like some of those speeches, you just hold your focus and try to use those speeches to do the action in the scene. Like the one scene where I'm cursing him, you know, one of my big things was I refused to blink during this. And there's no coverage, so you're shooting things in one take, you know? So it really makes the concentration and the intensity very strong.
And you shot, you know, when you shot, we say, by the continuity, no?
No, it was too difficult because this was shot in Nova Scotia, island in, you know, Nova Scotia, on a little spit of land that wasn't really an island, it was a peninsula. And it was very rocky and very rough, a place called Cape Fourcheux that's right outside of a fishing village called Yarmouth. And everything that you saw in the film was built, including the lighthouse, which is quite amazing because it's a modestly budgeted movie. So they did this beautiful job of building this lighthouse and the outer buildings, and most of it was shot there. So we were very weather dependent. For example, we had horrible weather right before as we were preparing, and then all of a sudden when it was time to shoot, in fact, we had a snowstorm the day before we were to shoot, and then the second day it got very beautiful. So they had to move up a scene, and the only thing they could move up was the scene where I get buried. And that's not the kind of thing you want to do on the second day. You don't ever really want to do it. But actually, you know, something like that, you know, it's difficult, but it's also a gift. It's a blessing because no acting required because they're really burying you. You know, it's quite intense. But that had a good fact because we did that. That really set the tone for the rest of the movie. And also because it was a Canadian crew and they didn't know Robert so well, it really was a slap on the butt to say, this is what we're doing. You know, it raised the stakes.
And Robert Pattinson, you worked with him before, you know, the shooting, or you just met in the shooting? And because it's quite amazing, the relation, you know, in terms of actors between both of you, and how that, you know, this relation has to progress. And you had much more experience than Bob, and for him it was really should be a kind of much more, you know, how I can do this with Willem in front of me and not doing everything. I would like to know how the things went between you actors.
We didn't rehearse so much. We did do a little rehearsal before, but normally, which is rare in a film that you get to rehearse. But we did rehearse like 5 days in a hotel room with, you know, things marked out on the floor. But it was really not for us, it was for the camera. Because the camera language was very precise, and we were shooting in very difficult weather, often outside with rain and you know, the camera breaking down, these kinds of things. So they had to really know exactly what they were doing. So basically they'd set up the camera and then they'd say, okay, here's the scene. We've got to block it in this particular shot, which was kind of backwards than how you usually do it. And what became revealed is Rob Pattinson hated rehearsal, because he felt like he didn't want to do anything until the cameras were rolling. He said he'd like to be surprised, and he wanted to surprise me, which was okay because he's a very reactive character. But I had those big speeches, and it's my lighthouse. So, you know, I had to rehearse, and also it's a difference between not only the roles but the backgrounds, because I'm for many years, I still am, but a theater actor, so I'm used to repetition does not kill impulse. It doesn't kill, you know, in fact, sometimes it frees you and you can be more loose when you have a very strong structure. Well, Rob doesn't come from that tradition, so he can't defend himself, but, you know, because he's not here, but I heard him over and over say he didn't want to show or do anything until the camera was capturing. Because, you know, it's the difference between capture and conjure. He was, as a reactive character, he wanted things to be happening for the first time. For me, I'm not so concerned by that because my job is to make it seem like the first time and conjure that kind of feeling of for the first time.
And
But it was, even though we worked very different, it was terrible weather, and I barely knew the guy. No, I mean...
you not see.
No, because I like to stay on the set. He likes to prepare in his trailer. So I never saw him except for in the scenes. And then afterwards, doing press for this, Interview Magazine has this thing where, you know, an actor will interview another actor. So I interviewed him, and I was amazed. We started talking, and I thought, we think the same thing. Which was so strange because the experience of actually doing it was we were very different. But maybe that was a little bit of us getting in the heads of the character too.
Now, it's up to you.
How did you prepare for the role?
Oh, you know, in this case, really the text was a place to start and external things. I mean, I had false teeth. I had to grow the beard. The costumes were very important. Little details, you know, Rob Eggers really feels comfortable in other times. He's like he's a great researcher, and he really loves other periods. As opposed, he feels like what's going on today can be expressed in other periods, and he loves historical detail so much to the degree that he feels like it limits his choices because he's always going with what's so authentic. So his original approach is very academic. So he had a wealth of material. Of course, beautiful pictures, beautiful writing, dialect studies, interviews with lighthouse keepers, protocol of lighthouse keeping, all that stuff I read and I sat with. And of course, to get the look of the character, lots of photos. It was mostly that, and then little things like, you see it for about 20 seconds, but I learned to knit. Which sounds like a silly thing, and I didn't do it because I thought I would be knitting a lot, but that's the kind of thing that when you're sitting on the set and it's cold, and you're freezing, you know, it's kind of a meditative thing that you can do, and something that they did very much. So that's one of those little details that just helps you create a new life that makes you more available to inhabit the character, because that's something that didn't exist in me before. So then it's an experience that's tied to this, and somehow those little things really give you a kind of authority in the pretending or free your imagination.
Good evening, Mr. Dafoe. It's
Hello.
a pleasure to be here with you and
Good.
to watch this movie. It was a
Good.
great pleasure. Sorry for my English.
It's better than my Portuguese. So.
My engagement with the movie bring me up a problem that is always on my mind, on my consciousness. That is, the limits between the boundaries of reason, of rationality, and the disenchanted world. And I'd like to know your vision about that.
This movie is so elemental that I think different people are going to read different things into it. Even in the relationship, even in the themes. For me, without, stating like an interpretation of the themes, it's very much about identity. The idea, that put two people in a room, strip them of the things that make them feel safe and make them feel comfortable and make them take away a future, a certain future, and then pit them against each other in a way that one threatens the other. That's pretty volatile. It has something, it's very related to this whole idea that the misery of the world is, You can, the fact that a man can't sit alone in his room is, the reason for a lot of the misery of the world. It's in that ballpark. So it's so elemental that I think different people are going to see different relationships. I don't know whether that touches your, to help me? But I'm not,
In my engagement with the movie bring something like it could be understood in two dimensions, like a sort of curse. They would be damned for some actions, or it could just be in a disenchanted view, a very prosaic relationships without that.
I think it's very flexible. That's what's great about the story. I mean, another beautiful thing about this character that I play, and also Rob's character, is they're unreliable narrators. You don't know what's real. You don't know what's true and what they're making up. It all gets mixed up. But I think you bring to it, it's porous enough that you can enter it, It's been fun doing press because many people see different things. You hear, it reminds them of a couple. It reminds them of a boss and an employee. It reminds them of a father and a son. Some people really go crazy with the homoerotic aspects of it. Roommates that can't get along, they go crazy. And that's cool. So, I didn't have a good answer, but we talked.
Hello, Willem.
Hi.
Sorry. First of all, we can't thank you enough for being here.
No, I'm happy to be here.
No, but we are equally happy, obviously. The film was amazing, and so was your acting. I have two questions. I don't know if there's an issue with it. May I?
Rip.
All right, thank you. The first one's a bit technical. You are obviously a very experienced actor, but nevertheless, I would like to ask if there was some sort of difficulty with this specific role, because there is a lot of progression to your character. He goes from one mental state to another throughout the whole film. And so was it really hard with this non-chronological shooting to actually balance things out? Like you said, the second day of shooting was the burial scene. And so how do you actually know where your character is mentally in that state and make it all cohere into an impressive piece, which, by the way, in my opinion, you did nail it completely.
Okay, thank you.
So that's the first question.
Okay, give me the second one too, in case.
Sorry.
I'm a big boy. Give it to me.
The second question is, you have an impressive filmography under your belt. You have both starred in more mainstream commercial films, as you know, obviously, such as Aquaman, John Wick. You have been the pretentious director in Mr. Bean, which is an impressive role. But you have also starred in a lot of art house films, and you have worked with directors such as David Lynch and Wes Anderson, Lars von Trier, and Martin Scorsese. My question is, throughout this whole impressive career, how have you balanced between what you would like to portray in each role? When do you know when you feel like going more mainstream? When do you know when you feel going more like David Lynch way, for instance? There are certain actors that focus on certain things.
That second, I don't have a good, listen, I don't think about, it's a case-by-case thing, and I don't make distinctions. It's really about situations and people and looking at a script and saying, am I going to learn something? Does this turn me on? Is there something resonant there? I never say, well, now it's time to go art house, and no, I better, it's not even economically. People have the misconception that you get paid a lot on a big film and you get paid very little on little films. It's not always true, because sometimes they choose to pay you not so much up front on a big film, and sometimes a little film needs you, so they're willing to pay you. So that's not even a consideration. There's sometimes a consideration that, when you do the big movies, it helps raise a profile because they have advertising budgets, they get full distribution, and it keeps your name in the conversation. I don't plot it that way, that happens just kind of naturally. And then it helps when you want to make a little film. Because if people haven't seen you on the screen for 5 years and you're trying to finance a movie, he knows this, they're like, well, yeah, okay, but he doesn't bring anybody to the movie. So that's a slight consideration. But as far as actually saying, making those decisions, I don't have that so much. And I made a mistake because now I've forgotten the first question.
It's completely okay, thank you. Thank you for answering
Real
the second
quick.
question. The first question was regarding that specific non-chronological shooting, which I was referring to.
Okay, I know the answer for that one. Because I think everybody's different, but the truth is you can play the scene, you can play the reality, but I've never been one for plotting out the movements of things, even inside a scene. You know, I'm not interpreting, I'm not building a case, I'm trying to be there and receive something that's happening. Yes, sometimes I have to push the action, but even then, I don't know where the edges are. And I think if you plan too much, you get tight and you limit yourself, and the material doesn't resonate. You want to create really being there. You want to create a presence. You want to inhabit things, so no matter how they cut or shoot it, or put it on its head, or play it backwards, or put music over it, or change the dialogue, whatever they do, as long as it's got kind of an integrity, then it'll play. And part of how it's paced has to do more with montage and the director guiding you or anticipating things. But me, on my own, I don't say, well, this is late in the movie, he's really in bad shape. I have to be reminded, you know? Because I think also you anticipate things too much. Okay? It's like if someone, let's say someone dies, you know, toward the end of the movie, and you start thinking, oh God, this is really the bottom for him. It may not be, you know, you got to play one scene at a time. That's my point.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for coming. Congratulations on your performance.
Thanks.
You almost just answered my question, but
Okay.
I'm an actor,
Uh-oh.
and I admire you a lot.
Thank you.
I was just wondering what's your biggest advice
Basic advice?
Yeah. Most important advice, I don't know.
My go-to basic advice is do this to do this. Don't do this to do that.
Hello.
Morning.
Good morning. I'd just like to say, I think you're greatest actor working today. Terrific.
You're going to embarrass me.
Oh, no. It's true.
If you say too much, I'll get all puffed up and then I'll fly up into the flies.
It's just overwhelming. But I also have two questions. Is that okay?
We can try.
So first of all, I remember seeing in a video on YouTube you mentioning that in Sean Baker's The Florida Project, you felt that that character didn't really feel acted, but felt fluid. Does that relate to Tom? And if it doesn't, how do you feel about Tom?
I'm not sure. I don't recognize that about the character. The only thing I remember about the character in Florida Project is I was surprised. It sort of relates to what I'm talking about. You can't plan. I didn't know that was an empathetic character. And then the movie comes out and people are like, God, you're such a nice guy, you know, in that movie. You're so feeling, you're so compassionate. I didn't know it when I was doing it. I was just doing what a manager does and being part of the community. That's the only thing I can think about, the only thing that I said about anticipation of the character to what the end result was. Sorry, I don't remember.
How do you connect this one to Tom?
How
do you connect to Tom?
Probably through the language mostly. And just the fantasy, the little boy part in you that, imagines, there's enough stuff in your imagination about a seagoing guy, with this beard, and you've got the whole world there. So, I don't know, it's just good old-fashioned pretending. You make the, characters revealed in the action, so you don't know almost until after about what it has to do with you. But I mean, somewhere philosophically, I think everybody has all behavior, all characters inside of you, and it's just about making yourself available to the action to have them be revealed. And obviously, actors get practice at trying to do that. Sorry, not perfect.
Just one question. If by any chance this was a play that could be, you will play it the same or something really different? If this one day could be a play between two guys and everything, you play it differently or something will...
I can't see it as a play. It's so tied to the visuals and to the... And, a play, the theater I do wouldn't be this, It would be reduced to story and character. It would be, I don't think I'd ever want to do something like this as a play.
No, but there are, you see things of Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams and everything. We have this kind of tension between characters,
Yes, it's true.
And to know if to make a film or to make a play is something, sometimes with characters that can be related.
Used someplace else.
You work completely different or not?
I think so. Because what you do is, the thing that always happens when you, one of the beauties of, working in different ways with different situations is every time you get there, you got to say, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? Who do I have around me? What are our expectations? What am I learning? There's all these questions, and that becomes kind of the engine for your curiosity, your receptivity, your tolerance, your your flexibility. All those things are different every time, and some answers get answered. Some questions get answered very quickly, and some are very late to be answered. But I think with each situation, there's a different performance. I mean, I never think about character. I never think about my performance. And I don't want to be too overly seem generous or, patting myself on the back about this. But the truth is, I have my best experiences when I feel like I can disappear into the material, become part of the fabric of the material. And that's what I always look to do. So you have to find your way in. And it's never about building up something that's coming out of you. It's about being useful. It's about being clear, and it's about having an experience that affects you deeply enough that you have a shift in how you think, and that's when you come alive. Just like for all of us, when we take a new job or something, you learn something, you become a new person. It's the thing that keeps us out of kind of a depressing lockstep to the grave, and actors are lucky that they get lots of chances to play around with that.
Hi. Once again, thank you for coming and congratulations. I just wanted to ask, a lot of what you are saying sounds to me to have a relationship with Zen. And I think I heard you say once in an interview that you do have a relationship with Zen.
Listen, I'm interested in Eastern thought, let's just put it that way. And Yeah, without, yes, I do.
So the question is, can you say more? Just a little bit how that relates
Part of
to
the
it.
idea is about just doing it, you know? There's nothing to say. And that I mean that, really. I don't know what, you know, I don't know what to say about that. But yes, I'm interested in lots of things.
Hello, Mr. Dafoe.
Yes? Hi.
Hi. Well, thank you for coming again.
Yep.
Being able to see this film here with you and Robert Pattinson, two actors that are so celebrated in this festival, it seems like it came full circle. This film is just absolutely phenomenal.
Great.
And well, my question is not about the film.
Okay.
Everybody had such great questions. My question is about when you were filming Platoon, your character in Platoon as what I would say the most epic death in film history, with the arms raised up. I mean, Sean Bean can try as many times as he wants, but he'll never top that. How did that scene come about? Did Oliver Stone told you to just raise your arms or so?
Yeah, I mean, really, the instruction for that was so simple. It's you run from here and you die over there. And before you die, reach up for the helicopter. And we didn't rehearse it. The only thing we did do is I detonated my own charges on my body. I had a thing in my hand. So I had to hide that, and I had to run and avoid all the explosions in the ground. And it was quite fantastic because all the cameras were up in the air, so no one was near me. So it was one of the most, I can almost remember it right now. You're huddled down, they're way up in the air, you've got a walkie-talkie down there. There's about 300 Filipino extras behind you, dressed as North Vietnamese regular army. And I'm there, and it's like, and I've got this explosion thing to deal with, and it's like, okay, go. And I just run for my life, avoid the explosions, and I know at a certain point I'm going to fall, get hit a couple of times, react to that. That's not planned. You just imagine like you're a little kid, you know, and playing war, and you reach up for that helicopter. And it was shot well. They laid music on it that really elevated it, and you know, there's a very good example of being just there to receive something that was well orchestrated. I'm a part of that. I'm a thread in that tapestry.
Thank you.
Okay.
You said that knitting is a new thing that exists in you after doing this film. I'm just interested if there's anything else that exists in you after doing this.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear to it. The thing's a little wonky. If anything interested me after
Oh, no, you were saying that knitting exists in you now after doing the film. Is
do I
there
continue?
something else?
No, I haven't.
Is there something else new that exists in you after doing this film?
It's always hard to say because you learn things. I don't know what those things are. You learn your lessons intuitively. I know how to knit. I know how to keep a clay pipe going. I know that, you know, we did a publicity shot, and when it's raining, or even when it's humid, you put the pipe upside down, right? And everybody was like, look, the guy doesn't even know how to smoke a pipe. It's upside down. I was like, smarty pants. You do that so the bowl doesn't get wet and so the tobacco stays dry. You learn things like that. But, I mean, it's also an experience. You know, it's like, that's like saying, what do you learn from having a relationship with someone? You know, it's hard to put your finger on. And if you can put your finger on, you probably didn't learn something.
I think you learned something, not to be again in a lighthouse, no.
What's that?
Not to be back in a lighthouse.
But I love that world. I did love entering that world. Oh, I know what. I learned that I'm becoming my father. No, that was a lesson. I went, oh my God. And I come from a large family, and some of my brothers and sisters saw it, and they said, you know, you were a little like Dad in there.
Good evening. First of all, congratulations for the movie. Before my question, I'd like to say that earlier this year I saw your other movie, At Eternity's Gate. And I have to say, you made a spot-on Van Gogh, regardless of age. So my question is based on a comment I saw online where a person said that old school film equipment was used for this movie. Is it true, or if true, was it any different than using more modern
For the
film
lighthouse?
equipment?
For the lighthouse. Yes, old school was in the respect that it was, well, obviously black and white, a very special kind of film stock, which is more technical than I really understand, just about the values of, the blacks and how to light it. Lenses that were used were taken from like the 30s. They were using these old lenses and rehousing them to fit on this camera. Also, you're shooting in film. There's many things that weren't, you're not shooting with a video camera. You're not light on your feet. You really have to plan things out, and you have to really light things. So that really colored the experience very much.
Okay, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody's very good for staying, and it's good to see you.
And thank you for being here. And I hope you come back.
Yeah. Thank you.